Have you ever imagined waking up on a regular morning and suddenly finding yourself in the middle of a real nightmare? Have you ever felt the anguish of not knowing if you are safe, even in one of the most peaceful places in the world? Today, I want to tell you a true story that shook Norway and the entire world. In today's video, we will talk about one of the most terrible and incomprehensible episodes in recent history, the tragedy of July 22, 2011, where a man, Anders Johansen, murdered 77 people in an act of pure violence and terror. If you've ever wondered how a person can commit such atrocities and what drives someone to plan such a devastating attack, you're in the right place. In this video, we will unveil all the details of this horrific crime, from meticulous planning to Anders' distorted motivations. Think about your daily routines, the people you love, the moments of peace and tranquility you cherish. Now imagine all of that being destroyed in an instant by a senseless act of violence. It's painful to even imagine, isn't it? That's exactly the pain and confusion many people felt on that fateful day. But don't worry, I am here to guide you through this story so that together we can better understand what happened and perhaps find some answers to such disturbing questions. In the next few minutes, you will discover what motivated Anders to commit these crimes and how he managed to carry out his plan so brutally. This video might be exactly what you need to finally understand this dark chapter of history. Let's start this journey together, recalling every detail, every moment of tension, and every surprising outcome of this terrifying story. And if you haven't subscribed to the Detective dos Misterios channel yet, subscribe now. In the next videos, we will bring more intriguing stories and surprising conclusions that will leave you in awe. Ready to dive into this story? Then let's go. You've probably heard the phrase, Norway is one of the safest places in the world. It's a common belief, and to a certain extent, true. With its stunning landscapes, high standards of living, and one of the lowest homicide rates in the world, Norway is often seen as a haven of peace and security. But on July 22, 2011, that image was brutally shattered. Imagine an ordinary summer afternoon. People are enjoying the day, relaxing, and making the most of their free time. In Oslo, the capital, the weather was typical, a bit chilly, but still a vacation day for many. Suddenly at 3:18 p.m., a deafening explosion echoes through the city. A white van parked near the government headquarters explodes with devastating force. This van contained nearly a ton of homemade explosives, carefully prepared by Anders Johansen. Anders was a 32-year-old man with a troubled past. The son of a diplomat and a nurse, his childhood was marked by family conflicts and worrying behaviors. From a young age, he isolated himself from the world, immersing in extremist ideologies and violent online games. This isolation and his distorted beliefs led him to plan something unimaginable. After the explosion, while Oslo was still in shock, Anders was already on his way to the island of Utøya, a small piece of paradise, where young members of the Labour Party were attending a summer camp. Disguised as a police officer, he managed to reach the island with ease. Minutes after disembarking, he began shooting indiscriminately, turning a day of joy into an absolute nightmare. Can you imagine the panic? Young people running, trying to hide, some even jumping into the water in a desperate attempt to escape. The violence continued for more than an hour, with Anders meticulously hunting his victims. In total, 69 people lost their lives in Utøya, most of them teenagers. It is almost impossible to understand the level of hatred that drove Anders to commit such acts. Some experts try to compare his actions to those of other notorious criminals like Ted Bundy or Adolf Hitler, but each case has its own nuances and motivations. In Anders' case, his actions were driven by a distorted ideology and a desire to draw attention to his extremist beliefs. After the attacks, Anders was captured by the police without resistance. During his trial, he tried to use the court as a platform to promote his ideas, but Norwegian society and the world reacted with horror and disgust. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum allowed by Norwegian law, with the possibility of indefinite extension as long as he is considered a threat. Thinking about all this, it's hard not to reflect on the fragility of security and how easily it can be destroyed by a single individual. The tragedy of July 22nd reminds us that even the safest places are not immune to violence and hatred, but it also shows us the human resilience and the ability of a nation to come together and recover in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Anders Johansen, the man behind the attacks, was born on February 13, 1979, in Oslo. From an early age, he showed signs of disturbing behavior. After his parents' divorce, he was raised by his mother, a woman with emotional problems, creating an unstable family environment. His childhood was marked by psychological evaluations, indicating serious problems, but he never received the necessary treatment. Over the years, Anders became increasingly isolated. He sought recognition and acceptance, initially getting involved with nationalist groups, but his strange and meticulous behavior alienated him from others. At 14, he joined a nationalist gang but didn't fit in. His obsession with planning actions like graffiti attacks already showed a dangerous side of his personality. Over time, his extremist ideology solidified. He began to believe in conspiracy theories and started preparing for a major attack that, in his mind, would save Europe from what he saw as a cultural and religious threat. The internet, with its extremist forums, served as a catalyst for his distorted ideas. In 2011, he moved to an isolated farm where he spent months planning and preparing his attacks. He built the bomb he would use in Oslo and accumulated weapons and ammunition for the massacre in Utøya. During this period, he wrote a 1,500-page manifesto detailing his beliefs and plans, which he sent to supposed sympathizers just before the attacks. On July 22, 2011, Anders put his plan into action. The explosion in Oslo was just the beginning of his violence. While authorities were busy dealing with the chaos in the capital, he drove to Lake Tiri and took a ferry to Utøya, where he began shooting indiscriminately at the young people present. The police took more than an hour to reach the island, enough time for Anders to kill 69 people. When he was finally captured, he surrendered without resistance, clearly prepared to face the consequences of his actions. During his trial, he continued to promote his extremist ideas, but the court and Norwegian society vehemently condemned him. The 21-year sentence, the maximum allowed by Norwegian law, can be extended indefinitely as long as he is considered a threat. Despite being imprisoned, the impact of his actions continues to reverberate. Norway, a country known for its tranquility, was forced to confront the reality of domestic terrorism and the need to prevent future tragedies. Survivors and families of the victims carry deep scars. The island of Utøya, once a symbol of hope and future for young people, now also serves as a memorial of pain and loss. However, Norway's response to the tragedy was marked by resilience and determination. Instead of succumbing to fear and hatred, the country reinforced its commitment to democracy, tolerance, and inclusion. The lessons from this tragedy are many. They remind us of the importance of being vigilant to signs of radicalization and supporting those in vulnerable situations. They also highlight the need for continuous dialogue about extremism and how to combat it without compromising democratic values. After the attacks of July 22, 2011, Norway underwent deep introspection. The society was shaken, but also united by a collective will to recover and ensure that something similar never happens again. Investigations revealed the impressive level of planning that Anders Johansen had invested in his attacks. He had financed his operations through fraudulent activities and meticulously researched and purchased the materials necessary to build his bomb and acquire weapons. His manifesto, sent hours before the attacks, detailed his ideology and provided a disturbing glimpse into his mind. In it, he saw himself as a soldier in a cultural war, fighting against what he perceived as the threat of a multicultural Europe. Survivors from the island of Utoya shared harrowing accounts of the terror they faced. Many recalled how Anders, disguised as a police officer, was initially seen as a savior, only to reveal himself as the agent of their worst nightmare. He used deceptive tactics to lure his victims, asking them to gather for safety before opening fire. The cold and calculated brutality of his actions shocked the nation. Norway's response to the tragedy was marked by a refusal to bow to fear. Then Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg declared that the response to hatred would be more democracy and more openness. This spirit of resilience and solidarity was exemplified by the thousands of Norwegians who marched through the streets, holding roses, in a peaceful demonstration of unity and resistance against terror. Debates on how to improve security and prevent future radicalization were intense. Authorities reviewed emergency procedures and crisis response, and there was a significant increase in the monitoring and surveillance of extremist activities. De-radicalization programs were also strengthened, focusing on early identification and intervention in cases of emerging extremism. On a personal level, the lives of survivors and the families of the victims were irreversibly altered. Many underwent long recovery processes, both physical and emotional. The island of Utoya, transformed from a symbol of tragedy into a symbol of resilience, continues to host summer camps, honoring those who lost their lives and reaffirming its commitment to peace and democracy. While serving his sentence, Anders Johansen remained a controversial figure. His behavior in prison, including attempts to continue promoting his extremist ideas, sparked debates on how to deal with high-risk prisoners. Norwegian legislation, known for its focus on rehabilitation, was tested by the presence of an individual who showed little to no remorse for his crimes. The tragedy of July 22nd also had a profound impact on how extremism is discussed and addressed globally. The case of Anders Johansen serves as a grim reminder that terrorism can come from within, and that radicalization can occur anywhere, even in societies seen as bastions of peace and stability. Over the years, Norway has worked tirelessly to rebuild and heal the wounds left by the attacks of July 22nd. The island of Utoya, once a place of nightmares, now stands as a symbol of memory and renewal. Each year, survivors, families of the victims, and new participants gather to honor those who lost their lives and to promote the message of peace and solidarity. The island has undergone significant physical transformations. Memorials have been erected to remember the victims, and destroyed areas have been rebuilt with renewed purpose. These spaces are not only to remember the tragedy, but also to educate future generations about the dangers of extremism and the importance of democracy and dialogue. The impact of Anders Johansen's attacks also led to changes in security policies in Norway. Security forces intensified their preventive measures and quick response strategies. There was a significant increase in the monitoring of online activities and extremist discussion forums. Police and other security agencies developed more robust strategies to deal with potential threats, and educational programs were implemented to teach about the dangers of radicalization. The response to trauma was also widely discussed and implemented. Norwegian society emphasized the importance of mental health care, both for survivors and the general population. Psychological support services were made available, and awareness campaigns were launched to ensure that those affected directly or indirectly could find help and support. Despite the tragedy, the resilience of the Norwegian people was evident. They came together not only to heal, but also to ensure that the legacy of the attacks was one of resistance to hatred. This unity and solidarity were manifested in various ways, from silent vigils to public displays of love and peace. The story of Anders Johansen is a brutal reminder of how hatred can grow and manifest in devastating ways. However, it is also a story of how humanity can rise from the ashes of tragedy, stronger and more united. Norway's response to the tragedy serves as a model for the world on how to confront extremism and work collectively to build a safer and more just society. As we reflect on this story, it is vital to remember that each of us has a role to play in preventing hatred and violence. Education, compassion, and vigilance are powerful tools that we can all use to create an environment where extremism cannot thrive. We have reached the end of this journey through the sad and impactful case of July 22, 2011, in Norway. We saw how Anders Johansen turned an ordinary day into one of the greatest tragedies in modern history, leaving a legacy of pain, but also of resilience and unity. The tragedy reminds us of the importance of being vigilant to the signs of radicalization and working together to prevent acts of hatred. Norway's response, marked by a combination of enhanced security and a renewed commitment to the values of democracy and solidarity, serves as an example to the world. The lessons learned from this tragedy continue to shape policies and attitudes towards extremism, showing that even in the face of darkness, we can find ways to rebuild and move forward. If you have watched this far, I invite you to comment, "I stand for peace," so I know you followed this story to the end. This helps to create an engaged and united community on the channel. And it doesn't stop here. In the next video, we will talk about another intriguing mystery that will leave you even more curious. If you want to continue following these fascinating stories and learn more about the secrets the world hides, subscribe to the Detetive dos Misterios channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any new content. Thank you very much for watching. Let's continue together on this journey of discovery and understanding. See you in the next video.